Hi, PerspectaWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Friday, March 8th. A minor snow event is headed into the D.C. to Philadelphia corridor over the next few hours. It looks like the snow will break out in the D.C. metro region during the late morning, midday hours, in Philadelphia during the mid to late afternoon hours. Likely not to reach the New York City metro region. The upper level energy associated with this particular low pressure system tends to weaken some as it reaches the mid-Atlantic coastline later on today into the early part of tonight. Certainly can be a coating, maybe up to an inch in some spots in the D.C. metro region and Philadelphia metro region, primarily to the north and west of the cities. More snow looks like it'll fall across the highlands of West Virginia and the western part of Virginia over the next few hours. But again, the upper level support tends to weaken as it approaches the mid-Atlantic coastline. Here's the latest look at the radar. And there is snow. It is a very cold air mass throughout the mid-Atlantic region. Primarily, we'll see snow today. There can be some rain mixed in, maybe south and east of the district. But again, primarily snow in the suburbs of D.C. and certainly in areas north of the Mason-Dixon line. Again, beginning by midday in D.C. and then mid to late afternoon in the Philadelphia metro region. Farther to the south, there is some rain falling. Well, once we get by today's relatively minor snow event in the mid-Atlantic region, a more important system will impact the area later tomorrow evening into the early morning hours on Sunday. And this particular storm system will have a much bigger impact out across the northern plains with a major snowstorm, and down across the lower Mississippi Valley there is indeed a threat for a severe weather outbreak on Saturday. This is the latest forecast map from the Storm Prediction Center of NOAA. They have upped the ante here in the lower Mississippi Valley with now an enhanced threat of severe weather. And I believe that is, unfortunately, a good forecast to increase the threat for the lower Mississippi Valley on Saturday. And again, this could include some tornadic activity as well. It's a classic setup with cold Arctic air to the north and west and warmer, more humid air to the south and east. And this is the battle zone in between those particular air masses. Again, a major snowstorm for the northern plains and a severe weather outbreak likely later tomorrow night in the lower Mississippi Valley. Well, let's look at the last night's 0Z higher resolution NAM model run. Again, this is from 0Z. The upper level energy associated with today's snow event in the mid-Atlantic region is relatively stretched out. We talked about this over the last few days. It's more or less a stretched out area of upper level vorticity or upper level energy, and that tends to cause a weakening of the system as it approaches the coastline. Indeed, it looks like the snow will certainly occur in D.C. and in Philadelphia, but probably not make it all the way up into the New York City metro region, given that weakening pattern in the upper part of the atmosphere. But here is that energy. Let's move forward in time. These maps available on tropicaltidbits.com. At the same time, notice out in the southwestern U.S. a much more vigorous area of upper level energy pushing northeast from the southwest U.S. and ultimately it ends up over the Great Lakes region over the upcoming weekend. And here we go by early tomorrow morning. Notice here that we have a strong upper level feature starting to go negatively tilted. That means the orientation of the upper level low is from the northwest to the southeast, and that promotes a lot of upward motion on its southeastern flank, and that will move right into the lower part of the Mississippi Valley, aid in the development of some strong thunderstorms, some severe thunderstorms, and again, possibility of tornadoes in this region. Meanwhile, up in the cold sector, a major snowstorm, looks like it could be a foot of snow in some places in Minnesota, for example. That pulls up to the north and west here into the eastern Great Lakes, and as a result, the mid-Atlantic region will primarily be on the warm side. Rain should move in late tomorrow evening in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. Now, it can be cold enough at the onset late tomorrow evening for a wintry mix in some of the normally colder suburban locations north and west of Philadelphia, north and west of New York City. Probably no wintry mix threat south of the Mason-Dixon line, but certainly interior Pennsylvania, interior New Jersey, northwest New Jersey, any higher elevation location. There can be a wintry mix at the onset. East central Pennsylvania, for example, that could include snow, sleet, or freezing rain. Ultimately, even in those areas, it should change over to rain. Now, the good news is the rain comes to an end early in the day on Sunday, and Sunday afternoon, temperatures could spike to the 60s in D.C., to near 60 in Philadelphia, and into the 50s in New York City. Let's keep moving forward. Here's Sunday, and finally, as we get into the day on Monday, we have another wave of energy, and that's associated with a strong cold frontal system that'll slide through and usher in colder air for the early part of next week. Well, now let's walk through the surface forecast maps, again using last night's 0Z NAM model run. The snow right now confined to West Virginia and points to the west, but it moves into the D.C. metropolitan region during the the latter part of the morning, the midday hours, and then it jumps up across into southeastern Pennsylvania during the mid to late afternoon hours. Now, the fact that this snow primarily occurs during the daytime, even with cloudy skies, the sun has some impact during the daytime in any kind of a March snow event. So the road should hold up relatively well, even with a coating to perhaps an inch in some spots. Again, marginal temperatures not too far from the freezing mark this afternoon, perhaps as much as the mid-30s, and the fact that the snow will be falling during the daytime should result in decent road conditions during any snowfall in D.C. and Philadelphia. Let's move forward here. Some lingering snow or flurries in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor late this afternoon, early tonight. Again, primarily stays to the south of New York City, but certainly just on the doorstep of the south or southwest of the metro region of New York. Can be some flurries by the evening. That pulls away, and then we have basically dry conditions on Saturday, moderately cold for this time of the year. High temperatures generally in the middle 40s in the D.C., Philadelphia, New York City corridor. And here we go by midday on Saturday. A snowstorm underway for the northern plains. Again, a foot of snow possible in parts of Minnesota, for example. Meanwhile, on the southeastern flank of this storm, in the warm sector, there'll be a battle zone between that cold air to the north and west and the more humid and warmer air to the south and east. A severe weather outbreak possible later tomorrow in the lower Mississippi. It could include some tornadic activity. That then ushers in rain into the mid-Atlantic region after, certainly after the sunset. It looks like late evening hours on Saturday into the I-95 corridor. And again, across Pennsylvania and interior New Jersey, it can be just cold enough at the onset for a period of a wintry mix. Snow, sleet, freezing rain. Lehigh Valley, for example, upstate New Jersey, northwestern New Jersey, any of the higher elevation suburban locations north and west of Philadelphia and New York City can experience a wintry mix at the onset, but even in those places, it should change over to plain rain later on tomorrow night, and basically a plain rain event south of the Mason-Dixon line. Again, the good news is most of this is over with. Early Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon can turn out to be quite mild, in the 60s in D.C., near 60 in Philadelphia, in the 50s in New York City. Breezy, mostly cloudy conditions. Then a cold front pushes through tomorrow night, and colder air, but moderately cold air, moves in for the early part of next week. It looks like for the most part next week is relatively quiet and a relatively mild spell for the Mid-Atlantic region and much of the eastern U.S. It turns colder again, however, for the last couple of weeks for the month of March. That's it for now. For PerspectaWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Orion.